It's a Friday, obviously. I don't feel well, so I apologize if I look weird or sound weird, or and I don't know. I don't feel good. That's all I can tell you. I don't know if I'm sick, or if I am sick, what I've got. I don't know, but I don't think you can catch it off the video, so I think we're good. A couple things that happened in the last few days that amused me, or at least got my attention. I did a video a while back called "Can You Say No When Asked to Tell the Truth Before You Testify in Court?" And I pointed out that no, you cannot say no. I have people say that once in a while to a video where I'm talking about testifying. People go, well, when they ask me to raise my right hand, do you promise to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing, so help you God? I'll just say no. And people think that, like, wow, you figured out a way that nobody else had thought of. When you say no, the judge will turn to you and say, okay, that's the incorrect answer. You'll need to say yes in just a second. And if you don't, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court. People go, well, that's not fair. I'm a lawyer. I don't write the laws. I just tell you what's going to happen to you if you go to court. So if you go to court and refuse to tell the truth when they put you under oath, you will then be held in contempt of court. And I've had people say, but Steve, you're not refusing to testify. You're refusing to tell the truth. There's a difference. Really? Okay. So I got an email yesterday from a guy who said, Steve, I watched this video you did called "Can You Say No?" Blah, 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 blah. And by the way, the video's old. It's a couple years old. The guy goes, you missed a bunch of extremely important points. I could hear him rolling his eyes in the video. He goes, number one, you said that they got to put their hand in the Bible and swear. What if you don't believe in the Bible? You missed that. You skipped that. You missed that. He kept saying you missed things. And then he said, what about Quakers and others who can't take oaths? What about them? You missed that. And he kept saying I missed this stuff. So I've told you before, people want to argue with me in emails, get a standard email back that says, I'm sorry, I no longer discuss videos with people who email me at my office. You email somebody at work to complain about a video they put up on YouTube? So I sent the guy back that email, the standard response email. About 10 minutes later, he called my office. And now he got my voicemail, and he read his email into my voicemail. Steve, I was watching your video where you ask, can you say no when asked to testify? And you missed two big things. You missed one. So when I tell you don't bother me at work by sending me an email, you call me at work? I've talked about this before. Some people out there are really stupid. Really stupid. So I actually sent the guy a note and said, when I told you not to email me, you interpreted that as please call me? What's wrong with you? Don't respond. That's rhetorical. But then I thought to myself, I wonder if he's going to go and post those comments underneath the video, because that's what I told him to do. So I went and looked, and no, he hadn't. But you know what? Other people had. They were the first two comments. So what happened was the guy watched the video, started reading the comments, and said, hey, check it out. Somebody raises a good point about the Bible, and somebody raises a good point about the Quakers. And so he wrote me an email and didn't say, Steve, other people have asked this question, or he tried to make it sound like he'd come up with it on his own, which he didn't, obviously. But let me explain to you what's going on here. When I shot the video, I was talking about the idea that if you're brought into court and ordered to testify, you have two choices: testify or go to jail. That's your choice. That's your choice. And for some odd reason, everyone got stuck on the Bible and the oath. Because I said, you put your hand in the Bible, take the oath. And I had several people, and I had commented, by the way, to people who'd asked the question a year ago when the video went up, that if you say, I'm sorry, I don't want a Bible, you don't have to use a Bible. In fact, you can choose to not put your hand on anything. And likewise with the oath, if you're a Quaker or whatever religion you want to say you are that doesn't believe in oaths, you can raise your right hand and promise to tell the truth. Therefore, no complaint about the Bible, no complaint about being a Quaker. Are you telling me that Quakers can't promise to tell the truth? So I've never, ever heard of somebody successfully arguing and saying, my religion won't allow me to raise my hand and make a promise. And so getting back to my original point, if you are brought into court under a subpoena and ordered to testify, you have two choices: testify or go to jail for contempt. Now, a judge might not throw you in jail for contempt. He might have you go sit in the back room for 6 hours and let you think about what's going on there. But the point is that you're facing a contempt charge. And by the way, I was reading the other comments. I shouldn't have done that. I actually saw somebody who commented, Steve, subpoenas are often signed by attorneys. You don't have to respond to them. Really? If you look at a subpoena in Michigan, a subpoena is a court order. And it says right on it, this is issued by a court and may be signed by the following people: a judge or an attorney. So if the attorney signs it with the permission of the court and it's a court order, yeah, you better show up. You better show up. So there you go. You don't need to swear on the Bible. And if you're a Quaker, you can still testify. But my point originally was simply, if you're asked to testify and then you say, I won't tell the truth, that's not testifying. That's lying. Then I had another bizarre exchange. And I know I promised a while back I was going to stop doing these, but some of these to me are just too entertaining. I hate to have good material go to waste. I did the video yesterday about the Afro Man lawsuit. The guy who did the song, Because I Got High. And cops busted down the door to his house and searched it with a warrant. And while they're searching his house, they were on his security cameras. And so he took that footage, put it into videos, including some that are really, really funny. And now some of the police officers who are in those videos are suing, saying that he misappropriated their likenesses under an Ohio statute that specifically talks about the misappropriation of someone's likeness. And I got an email from a guy who goes, Steve, I'm a professional photographer. And you got that completely wrong. Now, the weird part is that I'm an attorney and I talk about the law. And invariably, when I talk about some specific field of the law, somebody who's in that field but not a lawyer will contact me and go, Steve, I am a photographer. I know more about this than you do. Or when I talk about drones, Steve, I fly a drone. I know more about drone law than you do. Or Steve, I'm sorry, you're a professional photographer? So where'd you get your law degree from then? Some photography institute or? Oh, you don't have a law degree. Oh, okay. So your knowledge of law on this comes from what? So he said, Steve, I'm a professional photographer. And anytime, he said this, he goes, anytime that you photograph a person's face and use it in any commercial manner, you have to get a release. All 50 states, all of America, regardless. And of course, that's not what the case is about the Afro Man. Afro Man is being sued under a specific Ohio statute that talks about misappropriating somebody's persona. Okay? So the man goes, I'm a professional photographer. Anytime you use a photograph where you can see someone's face for a commercial purpose, you need to get a release. So I jokingly wrote him back and I said, well, what about like crowd photos at Michigan Stadium where there's 100,000 people in the audience? You got to go get 100,000 releases? That would take a lot of paperwork. And I've seen those photographs used commercially. You're telling me that someone actually got a release from every single person in the photograph. And the guy wrote me back and goes, yeah, you have to. If you're going to do it commercially, because otherwise any person in that picture could file a lawsuit and say, really? I said, well, dude, I'm joking about that. Because obviously, no, you do not need to get a release from every single person in the stadium to use the images commercially. You don't have to. That's not how that works. Okay. I said, besides that, if you watch the Afro Man videos, The faces of the people, the police, are incidental to what's happening. And there are exemptions in the law for things, for instance, like that are newsworthy. And I believe that Afro-Man will win this lawsuit, especially if it goes up on appeal. It has all kinds of constitutional problems too. But primarily because the faces of the people aren't that clear, and they're not the focus of the footage. There's guys kicking down the door. You're not looking at the guy's face to see who he is. A couple of the guys are walking around with their backs to the camera. I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? But the guy wrote me back and he goes, Steve. And again, I couldn't hear him rolling his eyes in this email, but close. He said, there's a famous case where a photographer saw a couple walking on the beach away from him. And he snapped a picture of the couple as they walked away from him. And you couldn't see their faces. But the man was wearing a sweater that was so distinctive that the man's wife recognized the sweater in the photograph when the photograph was used in an ad. And she recognized that that was her husband walking with a different woman. So she divorced her husband as a result. And he filed a lawsuit against the photographer and won a ton of money. A ton of money. So that's what can happen to you. True story. And I responded to that by saying, number one, no. Whenever someone tells me they know about a case where some guy won a ton of money by suing another guy, I always say, what's the citation for the case? Was it reported? Did it go up on appeal? What state was it in? And what law was the man suing under? Because you said he's walking away from the camera and his face was not visible. Was it because they misappropriated his sweater? Because that's what the guy said that the wife recognized. But just because the guy's wife divorced him doesn't mean he can sue somebody. The photographer didn't cause the divorce. The man caused the divorce. And so this guy actually said that if you get a photograph of someone's face, you need to get a release. And how I know that is because there was an example of a guy whose face was not in a photograph. And because there's no release, he got to sue the heck out of a photographer who caused him to get divorced. Okay, I told you I'm not feeling well, right? This argument is actually making me feel worse because I hate to make stupid arguments, even when I'm pointing out how stupid they are. Okay? Number one, that never happened. That's like an urban legend. That's the kind of story that you hear about. I heard a guy got a lawnmower. And he bought the lawnmower, and one year he looked up and there's snow on the roof of his house. And he thought to himself, that snow shouldn't be up there. So he took his lawnmower up on his roof and was using the lawnmower to blow the snow off his roof. And he slipped and fell, and the lawnmower chopped off his toes. And he sued the ladder company because he climbed up on the roof of the ladder. You go, what? Those stories aren't true. Urban legends. Vanishing hitchhiker. Look it up. Jan Harold Brunvand. A man walking with his paramour on the beach away from a photographer has his picture taken, put into a commercial without his permission, and his wife sees it and divorces him so he can sue the photographer and get a ton of money. Jury, have you reached a verdict? Yes, we have. To whom do you find? To whom do you find in favor of? As if they would say it that way. We find in favor of the divorced man. And did you find damages? Yes, we did. In what amount? A ton of money. Would those be U.S. dollars, Foreman? Yes, those are U.S. dollars. Boom. It is so ordered. Plaintiff is awarded a ton of U.S. dollars against defendant photographer for not getting a release when he should have recognized that the man was wearing a distinctive sweater when walking with his paramour down the beach. I'm going to go lay down. So I will talk to you later. Until then, behave yourself. Bye-bye.